Hello, my name is Michael Knipp, and I'm here for a book review on the book An Unkindness of Magicians by Kat Howard. This was the Patreon buddy read pick from my Discord for May. And unfortunately, I'll start this off with this is a book that I did not care for, and I really struggle to talk about it, but I'm going to try to work my issues out with the book between me and the camera right here. Screw it, we're doing it live! So first off, this is an urban fantasy about a world where something weird is happening to magic while we are dealing with this competition and like Game of Houses situation where there's a power struggle, and every so often this relatively nebulous thing starts happening. Like, it's not very well described, but some process that's magical happens, and then there is this competition for the houses to determine who's going to be in power moving forward. And a lot of the things in this book are vague on purpose. I think you're supposed to be in the dark. It's supposed to be a mystery / thriller that also happens to have magic in it. And that, in combination with the fact that this is a story with a soft magic system. For those that don't know the difference, a soft magic system is one where magic is more magical, but it also means that there's less defining rules. Whereas you can go all the way to the other side where like sometimes Brandon Sanderson's magic feels more like a science fiction story where they've discovered some weird tech and everything has a specific use case. This is different than that because magic is just all over the place, and because of the mysterious element, like I said before, it can be very vague on what magic is able to do, what magic has done in the past, the power levels, the requirements, like all of these things are very vague. And this isn't something that bothers me all the time. I'm not a hater of soft magic systems, but in this story specifically, the vagueness on what magic is able to do, I think sometimes severely hurts the ways that we're supposed to be invested in different characters in the story, because we don't know the power level, we don't know what's possible, and when things happen, like for instance, mild spoiler a little bit here, but also not really, this is a competition between these houses, and these houses you have these 1v1 magic duels essentially. At no point do we see any magician use the same spell more than once, ever. Every single spell we see basically in this story is completely unique, and it's not like we have any idea, unless the book specifically just tells us how hard this spell is to do, how impressive it is to the people around. We see the crowd react, we see somebody go like, oh crap, that was a crazy good spell. But because all the spells are so vastly different, we don't really have any connection with like, oh dang, she just did a crazy thing, unless we just see the reaction from somebody else. And there are times when people are matched against each other in the story where their power levels are so different that it's like somebody did a spell and it describes, for a couple pages, it'll be like, this is what the spell does, and it was impressive because of this. And then somebody walks up and they just beat them in like a paragraph. And you're like, I don't really understand the balance here. And because of that, I think the world building suffers. Not that there isn't a sense of presence, I guess, in this world, because there are certain things that are done well. There's certain atmospheres, there's a certain level of darkness that happens in certain moments that does come across, but there's also so much that's not explained that there are large portions of the book where it just feels like you're being told this is what's happening, and you never feel it. You never connect with it. You're never shown it in a way that feels like you're part of the story. It's almost like in all stories, it's kind of like this, but it's almost like you're reading a history book of something that happened instead of being put into a story, experiencing that story with the characters in any way. And that's true for like every aspect of the story. The world building elements, the magic when it gets expressed, the characters, the character relationships, none of it feels well done at all, really, at all. Like, I don't want to be a hater. I've read a fair amount of self-published books that haven't had a lot of feedback or like editing on a professional level. This felt way more like one of those books where things were clunky or things just sort of happened or everything was told to us and we never had a reason to really care about the character that wasn't told. Like, you were supposed to care about this character because this. it's not that direct, but it's kind of that direct. It really feels amateurish in that way, in a way that made it hard. It made it hard because there was cool, like I said, there's cool elements of the world building. There are cool, dark things that happened on the thriller side of this that crop up from time to time, but I don't know how to explain this. I was once having a conversation with a friend who told me that a story being unpredictable was like inherently always a good thing. And for some people, predictability can be a big factor in whether they care about a book or not. For thrillers, I feel like that's more common. But anyway, predictability to me doesn't necessarily mean that a book is bad if it's too predictable. And in my view, having things come so far out of left field that they don't seem to have relevance to the story that's being told. Like, when you're being told a story, major events happen in such a way that you usually know that they're major events, and you usually know sort of why they happen, or it's explained either beforehand or foreshadowed or explained afterwards. There are plot twists in this book. There's one specific thing that happens where this major, huge game changer of a story element is introduced without any real foreshadowing, any explanation, and it has to do with the magic system, so it really isn't explained. And then it's just like, oh, there's a complete paradigm shift. I'm trying to think of another parallel from any other story that I can think of, and I just can't. But it gives the story an overall, like, random feel. Instead of like, this is a crafted story, it's like the story is moving along at a certain pace and this thing just sort of happens out of left field, and now the story is largely focused around this element, and I didn't sign up for that. I also didn't realize that it was going to be such a big deal even when it happened, and then all of a sudden you're being told, like, this is crazy and it's huge. But it has no real concrete place in the story. It has no concrete place with the characters. The magic is just so all over the place. It doesn't work. It doesn't work to me at all. And so for me, there's really no good connecting elements when it comes to the story is potentially cool, but mishandled. The characters aren't great. It's not like the prose is super beautiful. It's very straightforward. It's told in a way where you're just constantly POV swapping between this cast of characters and you're following the plot. Like, I think I said this about the Star Wars book that I read this year, but you're following the plot through the eyes of the different characters instead of following the characters as they figure things out. You're following the importance as it shifts between characters. And I think I love that concept, but I have not yet fully felt like I've seen it executed well. I'm curious if you can see how much my glasses are fogging up because it gets really beefy in this office in the summertime. And now I have to just at least briefly mention the tone of the book, which I didn't love. It sort of goes for that faux edgelord kind of thing where people are swearing and there's dark stuff that happens and the characters are all damaged and like really like cool edgy. And I've talked about how sometimes this works for me and sometimes it really doesn't, and it super turns me off. This is handled in a way where it mostly just turned me off. I was like, I don't really care about the main character, and some of this like edgelord punk sort of vibe. Somebody didn't know what the term edgelord meant, and I don't really know how to describe it except like it's like something that tries really hard to be edgy for edginess's sake, to try to feel more like dark or whatever, but like it doesn't work. It's a weird vibe with the cover too, which is this like really white pretty cover with these vines. I'm not sure. And then I was thinking about the title. After I finished the book, I was thinking about the title, and it's called An Unkindness of Magicians, and I cannot for the life of me figure out why the book was called the thing it was called. I don't know where, like, is it trying to be ironic because it's an understatement of the fact that there's like all these seedy underbelly political things going on in the magic world, because it doesn't feel like it's funny enough to be like that kind of understatement. It is such an understatement that it doesn't feel like it's trying to be literal. It's also a mouthful and it doesn't flow. An Unkindness of Magicians. It doesn't fit. I don't like the title, and I struggle to like most things about the book except for some of the darker elements of the plot, but I still think it fumbled on the execution of that as well. Oh, I forgot to say this, and since I'm already sort of nitpicking, I'm going to go ahead and mention this because it was something that sort of annoyed me about the book. So because I told you everything with the magic system is super vague and it's completely not explained or whatever, one of the things that repeatedly pops up constantly through this book, and it's impossible to not notice once you see it, is it talks about, and there's relevancy here, but it talks about how much the fingers of the characters' hands are bending and the weird ways that they bend every time they try to use power. Specifically, like the more contorted or whatever they make their hands, the more powerful the magic is. It's almost like shifting gears in the Fast and Furious, or just like ramping up your own power level, charging up again. You just twist your fingers more. It kind of reminds me of like the Scarlet Witch stuff in the Avengers series, but it's like the more they twist their fingers, it's like, oh, they twisted their fingers so painfully, the magic's gonna be so strong. It was wild, and it happens constantly. It took me out of it and made me laugh instead of be invested. I had to mention this and I forgot to, so I'm going to throw this and splice this into the video. As you guys know, I don't like just hating on books. In fact, I specifically choose books that I think I'm going to like. This is not one that I generally chose. It was the buddy read, and it won a vote for the patrons, which oftentimes they pick books that I end up loving. It's not like I just wanted to hate this going into it. In fact, I have friends that love this book, so I just sort of assumed I would at least like it, but I really struggled with it. It might have been a book that I would have really tried hard to DNF if it wasn't so dang short. And the fact that it was this short and I still struggled with so many parts of it, I was going to say it speaks volumes to it not being good, but it's really short and I didn't want to make some kind of bad pun because I don't like puns. And when people on my Discord hear me make accidental puns, they try to jump on me as if I'm some kind of criminal. I'm not a criminal. Sometimes they accidentally happen. Anyway, if you disagreed with this book, like any other review, please tell me the things you loved about it, because even when I don't like a book, and I strongly don't like a book, I love hearing other people's thoughts and what worked for them. I love hearing that stuff. So please share all your thoughts about this book if you've read it. If you have not read it before, do the things that I said, do they resonate with you at all? Is this a book that you've been interested in reading? In fact, the weird thing is I think that a sequel for this book got announced, like it might be coming out soon. It's not something that I would necessarily be interested in unless I heard there was like an entirely different tone and it was maybe even different characters. But is anyone out there watching excited for the sequel to An Unkindness of Magicians? Anyway, thank you for watching this review. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you dislike the video, you can give it a thumbs down. If you'd like to see more reviews from me or other book discussions or whatever from me, please hit the subscribe button. If you hit the bell, you'll get notified when I post new videos. If you'd like to discuss this or anything else with me and my friends, please join the Discord, which is linked down below. And if you'd like to support this channel financially, there is a Patreon link and also a merch store link in the description below as well. I hope to see you again in a future video soon. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, I'm not your dad, but I am your best friend. Bye.
Sleep, no one ever get enough. Always looking out tired. Sleep, no one ever get enough. If it don't show up, I might get fired. Sleep, no one ever get enough. Always looking out tired. Sleep, no one ever get enough. If I don't show up, I might get fired.